Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Courageously Authentic Leadership Summit. I'm so excited to have here with you all and with me, Dr. Stephen Crawford. He is the Director of Presentation for the Neuroencoding Institute. He holds a doctorate in Global and Contextual Leadership from Bethel University, and for the past 20 years, Dr. Crawford has been instrumental in developing and training thousands of leaders as a transformational speaker and trainer throughout the United States and in 13 countries. He has expertise in leadership development, teamwork, diversity, experiential education, which we are going to glean today, and community transformation. Stephen challenges traditional thinking by inspiring change through creative experiences. And I know firsthand that that is a true statement. I can't wait to hear what he has in store for us. Before I turn it over to him, I want to make sure that we understand, what does courageously authentic leadership actually mean? Well, the 4 pillars are clarity, courage, connection, and communication. Now, I've heard Stephen speak numerous times, and I have the privilege of training with him as a founding member of the Neuroencoding Institute. And Stephen, you emulate these pillars in spades. So I'd love for you to share with the audience, what does courageously authentic leadership mean for you?
Thank you so much. You know, I appreciate it, and I appreciate you bringing me on here and to be able to talk with this group, this community of people that care so deeply about courageous authenticity and the fact that that informs our leadership. I have to say this, is for many years, I had within our organization, integrity is one of our core values. And as I was reading a book, I think by Dr. Henry Cloud, about integrity, I realized that I really wasn't after integrity, because there's so much wrapped up into the perfectionism mentality of doing things right, doing things perfectly. As a matter of fact, when you think of the word integrity, it's almost like blameless, or people without faults. And I'm like, that just isn't me. I screw up all the time. But what was inspired in me, probably from that resource, is I wanted to actually be the person who had the courage, when I'm wrong, when I screw up, to admit that I've screwed up, to admit that I'm wrong, and to be able to move forward with whatever I'm pursuing at the time. And I want to be able to do that with absolute commitment towards moving forward. And that takes courage. I think it doesn't take courage to always be right. What takes courage is to, when we're wrong, when we fail, and when we mess up, to be able to pick ourselves up, to get it all together, to fail forward, and then to go to that next level. And that's been kind of at the heart. And so when I think of a courageously authentic leader, is someone who's willing to actually look in the mirror. Most of us lie to ourselves. It's okay. We all do it. We lie to ourselves about different things. I remember when I was headed to a meeting the other day, I lied to myself how long it's going to take me to get there, because it's human conditions to think that favorable conditions will last forever. And so if it takes me 19 minutes to get there on the best day with no traffic and no problem, I tell myself that every time I leave my house 20 minutes beforehand, that I'm on time. But that's really not reality. We have to learn to expect problems, expect challenges, and it takes courage to live in a world that isn't as predictable as we want it to be. There's ambiguity. There's all types of issues that keep maneuvering around us. And we have to have the courage to be able to face that, confront that, and really fail forward and go to the next level. So I know there's a lot, but when I think of courageously authentic leadership, I mean, so much bubbles up within me just thinking about having the courage to confront the failures within us, the failings within us, and then to be able to keep picking ourselves up and moving forward.
Absolutely. And I know something that comes up a lot is people go, well, leaders don't fail. Like real leaders, they get it right. They don't fail. They're always perfect. They're always on. And that's not the case at all. So if you would share with us, what does failure actually give us? What is the return that we get from embracing those failures?
Well, I think that one is the recognition that anytime you set a goal and you don't achieve what you're after, whether it be in a micro step of things that happen within a day, or a macro step of things that happen within a lifetime, anytime you fall short of a goal, by definition, you fail. You fell short of what you're seeking to obtain. And no one pursues failure. And I think that's what makes it kind of unique. No one pursues it. No one says, boy, I can't wait to fail again. You know, I happen to be, one of my recreations, I play golf. And I get out there, and for some reason, every time I get out there, I score less than what I feel like I'm capable of, because I'm going after my best opportunity, my best shot, my best this that has ever happened. But we know that many of those things, they fall short of expectation. And so I've got expectations of myself that I always fall short of. And that has to be part of the reality that we begin to embrace. What expectations do you have for yourself? If you don't have goals, like I said, you'll never fail, but life's going to be pretty miserable, right? So I think that we, pretty boring, right? So we do have aspirations, we do have goals, we do have metrics that we want to take, we have expectations, and I think we should have high standards for ourselves. I think everybody should really, really elevate their standards to really go to the next level and to keep growing. I think as part of the human experience, to grow and to become more and to explore the limits of our potential is foundational for exactly what we should be achieving as human beings. However, within those goals and those metrics and those aspirations, we're going to constantly fall short. And I think the indictment is that we take that personally. You know, I've yet to meet a parent that looked at their kid as they were learning to walk and say, nope, I don't think we got a walker. Nope, no walker here. He keeps stumbling and keep falling, or she keeps falling all over her face. Yeah, I think we should give up on this thing. We should just prepare to have a kid that will not be able to walk. No, every parent, no matter when they see a kid struggling and trying to overcome, they accept the reality that experience is just part of the process. Yet when we become adults, all of a sudden, we have this expectation for perfection. No, you fail until you get it right. You fail until you fail through the struggle, you fail through the pain, you fail through the falls, the nicks, the bruises, all those wonderful things. And I say wonderful very tritely, but we fail through all of that in order to achieve the status of ultimately being able to grow, attain, and maybe eventually some of us may even master the things that once defeated us. So I think that's part of the process.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times we miss the beauty in the failure because maybe it redirects us in a direction that we weren't expecting to go, right? And we weren't going in the right direction in the first place, but we didn't know that. Or we learned something about us that's a reflection of something that maybe we didn't notice before. And I think if we can be open to those learnings and those teachings through the failure, we do get a return on it, and it's not wasted no matter what the outcome was.
Yeah, we have to live to be re-educated. I mean, and it's just like most of us have an anticipation of we learned it once, therefore it should be perfected that first time. No, you've got to be open to re-education and re-education and re-education and keep learning again and to relearn the things that unfortunately at one point seem like so complex. And what we learn is that they become simple over time if we stay committed and we stay locked in to what our goal is. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we may learn that the goal is the wrong goal. I've had that before. I don't know if anybody's like me, but I've had that problem before where I was chasing after a goal and I thought the goal was the wrong goal. Some of them are probably a little too close to home, but I'll start with one of the goals that I can easily share, which was the desire in high school to be a professional football player. You know, I felt like I had all the skill, all the ability, but eventually it wasn't in the cards. Not because I wasn't capable to continue to train and prepare myself, but simply because the reality was the commitment that it would take required more of me than I was willing to give. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then I had to re-educate myself and learn that not bad to have that aspiration. It just wasn't for me. So that's part of the process.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. I know a lot of us have those aspirations when we're younger, I was going to be a singer. Like, I don't know why it hasn't happened yet, but and life happens and we choose different destinations. So for you, I know you've been on a leadership journey for a long time and you've done a lot of great things in your life. What would you say is the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome in your personal leadership journey?
Well, I think that believing, for one, outside of a sociopath and a narcissist, I think every human being that finds himself in a leadership role eventually will discover that people following us feels a little bit uncomfortable. I'm just saying. I mean, all of a sudden we see people, they're following us. We lay out a mission, we lay out a vision, and people are not only adapting, they're adapting their entire work lives based upon what we said that we created in our own head. It's like, oh my gosh. It feels vulnerable. It feels kind of, a little bit, it feels like there's a little hubris involved in that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to give direction, to give clarity, and to provide leadership for people, believing that somehow, because of your perspective, your skill set, the role that you play in the organization, that somehow your perspective, if people will follow that, it's better not just for them, but it's better for the ongoing growth and transformation of the organization. That feeling of getting over myself, believing that I've trained for this, I've learned, I've committed myself, I'm trusting that the gifts that I've been given all come together and have positioned me in this position for such a time as this. Mm-hmm. And getting over myself and worrying about the external pressure of getting it right. And one of the things that I had a mentor tell me one time, he says, a lot of people are so busy being right that they just refuse to get it right.
So good.
And for me, it's like I had to grow up and stop trying to be right. And I had to learn how to get it right. And that was the growth in leadership for me. I think that's what overcame. It's not about my opinion. You know what? We might get it wrong 100 times before we get it right, but we're committed to the right thing, not being right. We're committed to getting it right. And I think that was the growth journey that I had to experience as a leader. And it's still to this day something I remain committed to. If I find we're going in the wrong direction, I am not afraid to pull back and say, stop, redirect, let's go in the right. And if we got to do that 100.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. Because I know so many people, they get it like, this is where we're going, this is how, and I have to be the one. I have to have the answers, I have to be the one. And you don't. You just need to create space for everyone to come together because somebody else has a better idea than you most of the time. Right? So when you create that space for everyone to contribute,
always.
and so it
and I think it's always. I think it's now granted, sometimes my idea wins, but none of us are as smart as all of us. And
exactly.
I think when I was in graduate school, we read the book 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and it was the first time I had ever encountered someone who really delved deeply into vulnerability-based leadership. And I followed Patrick Lencioni for years now. Ever since I read that book, I've pretty much read everything he's ever written. I have certifications in like 6 of his, courses. I mean, it's just like I do training on Lencioni all the time because I believe in vulnerability-based leadership and collaboration and being able to distill the ideas that what we're learning into just a handful of rules that we can just commit to and move in the right direction. And you know what? If we get it wrong, if we're a healthy team, we can start up, we can get it right, we can figure it out. A smart team, and he does an example between smart and healthy. He said a smart team will eventually find themselves hitting a roadblock where if they're not healthy, they'll find themselves in conflict, they'll become political and tear each other down. A healthy team, even if they're not that smart, will eventually grow into a place, and then when they hit a roadblock, they'll reassess, and because they're humble enough, hungry enough, they'll commit to one another in order to figure out how to get it right. And that's, so I would love to be smart and healthy, but I've got to choose between the two. Being healthy is definitely much better. And I think that's the challenge of learning leadership is, can we commit to building healthy collaborative teams where the person at the front of the room or in the leadership seat doesn't always have the right answer. And that goes back to, rather than being right, getting it right.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that. Humble and hungry. Instead of saying I have to have the right answer, you're humble and you're hungry. That's awesome. So what guidance would you provide for someone who wants to become a courageously authentic leader? Because it is a step above just leadership.
Well, for one, you've got to be comfortable with change. Because the reason I think fear-based leadership, or people that refuse to be courageous, are committed to a status quo, committed to certainty and predictability. And it's human condition. It doesn't mean they're bad people. As humans, we want the world to be predictable, that we have in our brain a prediction machine, always looking to be able to solve the problem before it arises. And so we want to be able to predict and understand the world. And I get that. I respect that. However, in leadership, you actually have to live what they call a law of requisite variety, where the most flexible always wins, where you remain flexible, agile, and able to accept the fact that change is inevitable. I love that John would say change is inevitable. Change is inevitable, and change is not fatal, but failure to change might be. And so it's just like accepting the fact that, you know what, you have to be, as a courageously authentic leader, don't become brittle and stagnant. Remain flexible, remain humble. And I think that those are two factors that when you channel that, it changes everything as far as your leadership journey.
Absolutely. Flexible and humble. And your book title, actually, I think is a testament to being humble. The title of your book is Too Stupid to Fail. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I mean, I grew up believing that if you went to school, you did all the right things, you were smart in school, that led you to the journey of success. And I found, after having a master's degree, sitting in a car dealership that I hated being at every single day, going to the bookstore, sticking in the Barnes and Nobles and reading the books, the preview copies of books, and being able to learn. I was like, I realized that the most successful people that I knew weren't following any of the rules that I thought I was following. And as a matter of fact, they had desensitized their mind to the other people's opinions and the rejection sensitivities that most of us live with. And it was an indictment to me that I cared way too much. I cared more about what people thought of me than my own success. And it was in that moment that I started writing that book 17 years ago now. I started writing the book Too Stupid to Fail. I realized that I needed to dumb myself down. I needed to stop being so hyper vigilant to my surroundings, where my emotional intelligence was picking up on rejection and the slightest tone, and I was really capitulating and changing my entire habits around that. I had to build the mental, emotional, and the actionable strengths in order to take it to the next level. So I actually, like I said, it took me a long time to write the book, but I had a few things in between, but it was great to finally get to the point where I was able to really embrace that, identify that, and I hope that it's transformative for people, because it really does testify to the fact that most of us, we live our lives based upon the expectation of other people's, and that needs to shift and change if we're going to be successful. So.
Absolutely. And we find a lot of leaders who have the white picket fence life, 2.5 kids, dog, like everything looks great, but they're just not fulfilled. And there's more that they want in life. And a lot of times we feel guilty for thinking about that. We're like, well, my life looks so great. What's wrong? Well, and nothing's wrong. It's almost like you got to dumb yourself down. Stop trying to be such a stickler about making it perfect. And especially when it's by other people's expectations, because it's not aligned with who you really are and what you want to bring to the world. And that is draining for anybody.
And it's so true. Just because you have the right amount of finances, just because you have the right amount of, you're sitting in the right thing. I know so many people that are trapped in a world that they can't escape, and they remain, like I said, desperate and unfulfilled. That darkness of quiet desperation, as they say, because they are unsatisfied and unfulfilled, because they're unwilling to really be courageous and launch into the world that really is awaiting them if they would dare to be different,
Exactly. Stand out instead of fitting in. Find that courage within yourself to be authentically you. Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, Stephen, thank you so much for your time here with us. This has been amazing. Great golden nuggets to take away. And everybody, Too Stupid to Fail. It's in Amazon, all the bookstores. You can go get it. Why the Resilient Will Always Beat the Intelligent. I love that. I think it's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Again, thank you so much for being with us. And how can folks get back in touch with you? If they want to find you online, how would they find you?
Experienceleadership.com is just all one word, experienceleadership.com. We're pretty easy to find. But I want to thank you, Tina, for not only just launch this, but really inviting people into to explore their own courageous, authentic leadership, because I think it really is what the world needs right now to seek transformation. So thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks. Bye, everyone.